welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the results of the 5 assembly elections have come in. The result also seems to be in favour of the BJP and in favour of Prime Minister Modi. This, of course, has set off a sort of a reverse polarization. Can the opposition unite against Prime Minister Modi? The posturing and the planning for 2019 has begun. Joining me on the roundtable is Pavan Varma from the JDU. I have Jay Panda from the BJD, Bhartendra Singh from the BJP, and Rajeev Gowda from the Congress. Jay, I'm going to begin from you. I'm going to begin from the middle, since you've seen the appointment of Yogi Adityanath also as the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. That is sent off a message that there is going to be some sort of a consolidation of the Hindu vote. Does that worry you?
Well, if you listen to the statements that the new Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh has made since his name was announced, I think they should be welcomed, because he has talked about law and order being equal for everybody. He has talked to the administration that there should not be any partiality or any victimization of any section of society. These are all the right words. And so, in a sense, it gives some comfort to those who have a lot of concern considering his image and his track record. Now, of course, they have to walk the talk, and that is something that we will have to wait and see. But the mandate that has been given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's efforts is very substantive, and I hope that that these words are upheld in actual administration.
Pavan, am I right when I say the message that is going on is that there is going to be a consolidation of the Hindu vote? And if that is the correct message, then what is the opposition doing about it?
No, I think the attempt to consolidate Hindu vote is transparently in process. But I think there have been excesses on both sides.
Right.
I don't believe that the opposition to the BJP needs to focus only on targeting the Muslim vote. India is a country where we are dealing with citizens, not religious denominations. And I think one excess fosters another excess. One extreme nurtures another extreme. I think that there is a time for all parties to introspect. The BJP must realize that polarizing votes only on the ground of religion by inciting either friction, conflict or hatred is wrong. Equally, those in opposition to the BJP must understand that they cannot use the Muslims only as a vote bank at the time of election.
You know, I was very careful to use the word consolidation instead of polarizing, but that is what is happening. And I spoke to a lot of people, they are saying an anti-platform is not really the best way to get together people. You should have your own positive ideology. A bit of what Pavan is saying also. Don't just appeal to one section or target another section.
See, if you actually look at this last set of assembly elections, the BJP lost in Punjab. It was an incumbent in Goa, where also it did not become the single largest party. So, Modi has an effect, a very significant effect. But when the track record of the BJP government is not very good, or is in fact, like in Punjab, quite disastrous, Modi cannot save it, right? So, essentially, across the country, we are going to have multiple elections in the next few months, next few years, in states where actually, substantially, it's a BJP versus Congress fight. And so, this is the first opportunity that we will get to, where a variety of BJP governments are incumbents, to essentially do two things. One, examine the track record of those governments and say they hardly have delivered on whatever.
But can you
do it
alone, or do you need the help of others?
So we need to recapture our own mojo, as you might say, the
missing mojo,
and essentially we've got to be able to present, as he points out, a very credible alternative. And that is something that will be good for the larger opposition space as well. A sort of a revived, resurgent Congress, plus strong parties like the JDU and other allies that we have had elsewhere, because we need to show that we are competitive in the electoral space, and we have a lot of brain work to do to come up with a platform, a message, a narrative which says that we appeal to, we'll give you something positive. Now remember, there is a significant floating vote in India right now. And at this moment, that is going towards the BJP. It's not just identity and religion. There is, what's the
Aspirational vote.
slogan? The dialogue is that Modi's username is development, but his password is Hindutva. We don't. That is not visible, right? But,
Okay, let me get Bhartendra
we've
on
got to
this
see.
one. I like that. His
People are voting
username,
for one thing. Yeah.
his username is development, but the password is Hindutva, and Yogi seems to be the key to that password. Why appoint him? It's not that he was your last choice.
Let's not completely, it's very straight. The BJP defines nationalism as Hindutva. It's a part of our ideology and we stand by it, and there's no denying that, firstly. Secondly, I would like to agree with you that, there was a lot of pandering to Muslim votes, especially in UP by the SP and the BSP. We had Ambedkar villages and Lohia villages being adopted, but the development work would stop exactly where the Hindu mohalla started in the village. So it was a huge reaction against that. When we sat down and actually saw, analyzed the votes, what Professor Gowda just said, that the floating vote, which is the ati pichda vote, of castes that are poor like Kumar, Lohar, people like these, they have actually shifted into the BJP. And I think this is because the Prime Minister has changed the whole voting, the appeal of the BJP from being, being an upper caste party to being a party for the for the people who, people who don't have resources. So this really helps. I was looking at a few 100% Muslim booths in my constituency, which is deep West UP, which is completely polarized. And I was surprised to see that even in 100% Muslim booths, we have a few votes. So obviously, the lady who got her Ujjwala gas connection, or the educated lady who's got this triple talaq and understands it, she has quietly come and voted for the BJP. So there is a quiet shift of the vote, which nobody, including us, nobody estimated this huge wave that has happened.
The person next to you is still not believing it. But Jay, to come to what he's saying, they voted on development. He's talking about the Ujjwala scheme. But the vote was on development, but the candidate they chose is someone whose legacy is known for polarizing. He has a divisive past also in that. We can't negate that, take that away from Yogi Adityanath. Whatever he may do in the future, you're saying, I hope he will talk development. But you have to take his past into account. Now, does that worry someone like you? You've been supportive of Prime Minister Modi, some of his economic initiatives like demonetization. Now, would you think twice about, is this worrying for you?
See, I think I've already broadly answered this by saying that the initial words that the new Chief Minister has said are correct and they should be welcomed. And I hope, and my party hopes, that they will walk the talk and implement in the spirit of what has been said. So instead of further elaborating on that, I would like to say the following. Obviously, this massive mandate is not just any one thing. Clearly, I think Mr. Modi is being seen as Mr. Development because he talks about it all the time. But clearly, as my other colleagues have pointed out, after decades of consolidating certain groups, certain castes, certain religions, if the majority starts consolidating, it should be no surprise. It had to happen at some point. So there are very many different aspects which are coming into play. The reality is, this is an inflection point. This is a fundamental change of direction in Indian politics. Now there is no longer any doubt that in national politics, BJP has become the central pillar, something that Congress used to be for many decades. Many regional parties still have enormous clout in their own regions, and there are new dynamics at play. I think many politicians, including those within the BJP and certainly those in Congress and even in many other regional parties, have to adapt to the fact that there is a new India, there is a new aspirational India, and younger members of various castes and groups are breaking away from traditional definitions and traditional confines of whom they should be voting for.
The aspirational India point is a good one. You yourself said, let's not talk about platforms on basis of religious identities, but let's talk about aspirations. In terms of aspirational India, the youth vote, it is Modi who seems to be having the edge over, say, someone like Rahul also. How?
That is why I believe that merely on an arithmetical basis,
You cannot.
in a sense ganging up against Mr. Modi is myopic. It's not even sustainable. unless those in opposition to the BJP, because in a democracy you need an opposition as well, unless those in opposition who believe in the relevance of a counter narrative offer a credible alternative vision, both on development, on governance, and on a positive agenda which is not merely reactive or critical of Mr. Modi, I don't believe this coming together is going to have any effect. And that is why I believe that the planning with which the BJP went into UP was completely lacking in the opposition. Mr. Singh mentioned about the EBCs or the non-Yadav OBCs. People don't understand they constitute 30% or roughly that much of the population, both in UP and Bihar. The BJP assiduously worked to reach out to them.
Okay.
The opposition did not. And actually, the opposition made a perfunctory, casual, last-minute improvised alliance, which was no match to the formidable electoral machine the BJP is. So actually, the inflection point that Jay is talking about is for the opposition. Either we wake up and smell the coffee, or accept the fact that we are unequal to the task. The opposition cannot be merely arithmetic or expedient. The opposition must come with a credible narrative. And you speak about Mr. Yogi Adityanath, let me just make one last point. Of course, the fact that of his previous utterances will be one of the elements by which you can judge him. But I would say that now that he is in a position of responsibility, I would rather give him a few months before I pass comment. Because that is the way in which you exercise democratic accountability, not on a 24-hourly basis. But that democratic accountability can only remain with an opposition which is credible.
That's two people who you may see as allies are saying that let's give Yogi Adityanath a chance. Let's see, let him,
But far more important point, let's not anymore give the opposition a chance. They must get their act together.
Yeah, no more
And
perfunctory.
here Mr. Gowda can perhaps introspect on this.
And add some chemistry to your mathematics. You need to not just add up, you need to
We've
also...
been introspecting for a while. It's time for action, actually, just like Pawan has just mentioned. Now, the concern that we have is that, even Prime Minister Modi, especially when there were instances of hate attacks, intolerance and things like that, he would not comment on those kinds of issues. And much after, you would see a very, a statement which would sound nice and high-spirited, high-minded and things like that. And so, the worry is that, the leadership will talk in nice idealistic language, but the ground troops will go and do something worse and polarizing. That's not good. And if that happens, you will see a reaction even from the voters who have trusted. This is the worry, right? If you offered a development platform, then people will want to see development. They don't want to see development with hatred and bloodshed and division.
Rajeev, I
he's
want to ask
saying-
you a question.
Yeah.
1 second, please.
Yeah.
Take Mr. Yogi Adityanath.
Yeah.
If the opposition's critique is based on a well worked out strategy with facts to support it on issues which are not a prisoner only of his past utterances but
That's
his
fine.
present track record of governance, then I believe it will have an impact. Otherwise, a disorganized opposition criticizing on a daily basis merely from the prism of the past is likely to be counterproductive. I am saying that there are things on which the opposition must think carefully today.
Yeah, and I think I fully agree with him that the old, what shall we say, knee-jerk reactions to every utterance, to every incident, we have to be much more measured, and we have to find ways to ensure that people realize that we are actually, that we are offering an alternative that
Exactly.
cares, that is able to make a difference, and that will create opportunities, and that the opportunity that's been given to various BJP governments, that they may not be delivering on that. So that's our job, really, to find that. And one more thing I want to point out, India is actually in ferment today. If you go to Haryana, the Jats are agitating. If you go to Maharashtra, the Marathas are on the street.
They're all BJP ruled states,
If
don't
you go to Gujarat, Patels are
I think
agitating.
that's because of agrarian distress.
Yeah. So there is
agrarian caste.
absolutely, and the Kapus in Andhra Pradesh. So there is a lot. So it is not a
Patilas.
placid. Yes, it is not a placid country. There's a lot of unrest. So the question is, how do you relate to that? can you offer them an alternative compared to the current governments that they're dealing with?
Exactly.
What is the state level alternative? What is the national level alternative? Mr. Modi has been enormously successful by going to every state election and saying, vote for me, when in reality people will get somebody else governing them at the state level.
Bhartendra, just before we go in for a break, he's talked about, we talked about Prime Minister and his development agenda. How will you convince people like these two to come into your platform also?
Well,
Or are you happy with what you have?
since he mentioned the Jat agitations, and and we had a very tall leader, and Prime Minister Charan Singh ji and his son Ajit Singh running his own party, and Jayant, the new youthful face. But when it came to votes, just one MLA out of 403, because the people, the truth is that today the Prime Minister stands too tall in front of any leader that any party has, won. Secondly, the Prime Minister takes it upon himself, puts all at risk and goes and campaigns, So here is a man who has somehow captured the imagination of India, of a person who's, who's willing to renounce his family and willing to work hard for the poor and is pushing for an honest government. And it is this image that makes him, that can be checked and rechecked when his mother goes in a rickshaw to cast her vote, when you see that little home that she lives in. So, all the days of that princely inheritance in this democracy are over. And the people are voting for an honest, hard-working government. And since the Prime Minister is so tall, I think, the Chief Ministers have no choice but to comply and follow his policies. And anyway, let's be straight and honest about it. Everybody in UP voted for the Prime Minister when it was 2014, the MP election. And again, they voted for Narendra Modi, even in 2017, for his policies and for his honesty and hard work.
Well, we just need to take it is worrying. Well, we're going to find out what is worrying Pavan Varma, but after a short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, we are here to discuss the verdict of the 5 assembly elections, but more importantly, what impact they will have on 2019. Has the consolidation for 2019 already begun? And which way will the allies go? Jay Panda, regional parties, which way are they heading? So you have one strong leader and one trying to get his act together.
I see it this way. If you saw in UP, the BJP has upped its vote share to almost 40%. And that is what I've described now as the new central pillar in national politics.
Right.
What we have seen is that it is now going to take virtually every other party getting together in order to defeat the BJP. The implications are very, very serious because several parties, most of all, the Congress has to accept that they will have to be a bit player for such Mahagathbandhans to come together. And I don't know whether they are in a frame of mind to do that. Also, it will differ region to region, depending on whether it is a tri-cornered or multi-cornered fight or a straight fight. Let's take, for example, Odisha. Now, the Biju Janata Dal for 20 years has been by far the biggest party with the biggest vote share. Congress has been a distant number 2, and the BJP has been an even more distant number 3. But in the recent Panchayat elections statewide, the BJP has had a significant surge. The Congress has collapsed and the BJP has become a credible number 2. But while many in the BJP are celebrating that it has become a credible number 2 in Odisha, the fact is the BJD has won far more seats than the BJP in the local elections. So it's too early to start celebrating that this electoral success is a nationwide phenomenon. It will depend region by region, state by state. Throughout the country, you're going to see different stories. And there is already talk that perhaps in 2019, next time around in 2019, in Uttar Pradesh, there can be a Mahagathbandhan. But let me again point out that for a Mahagathbandhan to happen, even if the BJP has 40%, so it's theoretically possible that a Mahagathbandhan could stop it. But people are, it's going to require some kind of harakiri for certain parties to make it happen. And the last thing I want to say is this. Everybody knows that many significant leaders in the opposition for the last 3 years have been hoping for Mr. Modi to fail. That has been their strategy. That's not going to work anymore. They have to take hard decisions which will require very significant sacrifices. I don't know that that's possible everywhere.
I think one of the significant sacrifice, whether he's thinking about it or not, is should the Congress go in for a change of leader? He cannot comment on it for various reasons. I know it's not your party, but what would you suggest?
I can certainly not comment on it
But
because
as a
it's a
political
matter
analyst.
of the Congress party. But I can only say one thing. You see, in politics, this illusion of invincibility is usually transient and only a reflection of either hubris or sycophancy. We've seen leaders. There was a time when Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji called Indira Gandhi the incarnation of Durga in 1971. And 4 years later, she was floundering so badly, she had to impose the emergence.
Good point.
We've seen Rajeev Gandhi in 84. He seemed truly invincible. 403. And yet you had a situation where 4 years later he could not probably win the election. So in politics it's a dynamic situation. The opposition must hone its skills in order to play the role of a credible opposition and insist upon democratic accountability. And I have an advice, completely unsolicited, sir, for the BJP also. You see, beyond a point you can't play the game of development and Hindutva. Not that I have a problem with either in philosophical terms. But if you have the Mr. Vinay Katiyars and Mr. Sakshi Maharaj making incendiary statements which outrage even the enlightened members of the BJP on a regular basis, including a minister who made a comment on Ram in Parliament itself, in a speech and then later very reluctantly apologized. Somewhere people will see through the dichotomy between the Prime Minister's statesman-like statements and his silence or condemnation of statements of a completely different ilk, which in fact hit at the fabric of India at the ground level. However, that's for you to introspect. Our job in the opposition must be to go beyond merely a blind critique of Mr. Narendra Modi. And I worry for the BJP also when they speak like, pardon my saying so, like the Congress. I mean, the BJP has been a party. I translated Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's poems on his request. I knew him very well. It was a collegium. There could be a discussion. Even within the RSS, you may or may not agree with their philosophy. There was a manthan. There were discussions. I have never seen a party reduced so single-handedly to one man. No BJP leader, not even a chief minister, not even local leaders can sprout now, unless they are part of the shadow cast by this one banyan tree.
The high command culture is important
The
to the
high
BJP.
command of all high commands. I am just saying that while you may seem that you are at a absolutely unassailable pinnacle now, there are equal reasons for you why also the position is one where you should not become complacent.
Okay, we're totally out of time, so one quick answer.
We have a very, very hard-working Prime Minister. What you are saying is completely correct. Today, the Prime Minister's image is very large and he's very tall, as I've said earlier. But he's always in touch. For example, every day, starting from yesterday, the Prime Minister is having a breakfast meeting with his members of Parliament. Every day, he meets a new set of MPs, speaks to them.
Is it becoming a high command culture?
No, he asks for their views. It's an open meeting. You have breakfast with him. He sits, he chit-chats, he listens to you. There are other party functionaries from that state sitting there and advising. And तो वो जो आप बात कह रहे हैं मंथन की, वो निरंतर चल रहा है बीजेपी में. That culture is not changing. I believe that as long as there is
केंद्रित हो गया.
as long as there is transparency and there are no scams, as long as this honest, hard-working image of people like Yogi Adityanath, try to replicate what the Prime Minister has set forth, I don't think the people want to change. And it is what the people want that matters. Our movement was not created by Arvind Kejriwal. Arvind Kejriwal was created by the people of Delhi.
Okay. Last word to you, Jay. We've said Modi versus the rest. Who can the rest be? Who can be the face of the rest according to you? I know he's going to say Nitish Kumar. That's why I'm not asking
in fact, I'm going to say the question of the leadership is the best way to subvert the process.
The problem remains that in any kind of coalitions, earlier it used to be talked about as a third front. Now there is no need for a third front because there is no second. So it would have to be a second front.
Okay.
Yeah, because BJP will also be in coalition.
Now, to find a leader, a leader has to now adapt to the new India. It can't be because of dynasty. It can't be just because you've succeeded in one state or one area. You have to have an agenda to connect with the new aspirational India across the country. So far, there has not been a coherent strategy from anybody outside of the BJP or even within the BJP to have a strategy against the Prime Minister. Their strategy has been waiting for him to stumble.
Right.
And that is not going to work.
Okay. On that note, we end now. There is going to be a Modi versus the rest, but first I think the rest has to get its narrative together, its act together before it decides on the face of that rest. I think that's what we broadly agreed on. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.